Or, well,
Hello.
No, it's not.
hello. Wait.
Hello? See, mine's working.
Is this one better? Oh, yes, much better. Whew. I don't need to yell now. All right, we're going to call this meeting to order. And I want to begin with the land acknowledgement. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin Nation. And now we're going to stand for the national anthem. Thank you. I want you to know that it's strange to be singing O Canada without Patty beside me. We're the O Canada singers. All right.
That's an excellent voice.
Now we're going to have an approval of the agenda. Moved by Susan Irwin and seconded by Duncan McGregor, that the agenda for the regular meeting of council held December the 12th, 2023 be approved as. Are there any amendments, Kathy?
No, there are not, Madam Mayor.
Other than we want to move up. Council, if you'll look at your agenda, since Joe and Sonia are both here, we'd like to move number 12, the official plan amendment report, up just after B, 9B. And number 13I, administration, the CRINS issue, which Sonia will speak to as well. If that's okay with everyone. All right. All those in favor? Carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in general nature thereof by any item on tonight's agenda by any member of council? Seeing none, we'll note that in the minutes. Now we have a motion moved by Duncan McGregor, seconded by Susan Irwin. Where's my minutes? Sorry, guys.
There's no minutes. Madam Mayor.
Oh, sorry, there are no minutes.
So there's no resolution. For minutes.
All right. Mayor's remarks. We get to do that first. First of all, Santa Claus parades. We had 2 on the weekend. I think Parham's went ahead as well. A meet with Santa. And we had our first in a long time night parade in Charlotte Lake. It wasn't the only night parade we've ever had, because one of the gentlemen told me that many, many years ago, it was a night parade. So it's coming back again. And it was a great parade. I've heard lots of good things, lots of great lights and costumes. And it wasn't snowing or raining, so we got away with it very well. Just want to mention that our condolences go out to Cindy Cassidy, who's our Eastern Ontario Trails Alliance Executive Director. Her husband, Bill, passed away. So I think we've sent cards, and Kathy's going to send one on behalf of the township. This is our only meeting in December other than budget meetings, which is going to happen on Friday. So that's the whole day to get us started. That's it for me. Does anyone else have anything to add? Nikki?
I'd just like to remind everybody of the peanut butter challenge. It's going great. Over 100 jars of peanut butter have been delivered to the food bank so far. Oso District is ahead by 1 as of last Thursday. We'll do another count this Thursday, but it's a good challenge, trying to be competitive, but get some spirit going. It's that time of year to give back if you have a little extra, and peanut butter is one of the most expensive items that the food bank purchases.
And it's also one of the items that helps feed a lot of kids and adults. I think I eat it every day.
Lots more at the office, and there's 24 at the United Church that we're gonna wait till next Sunday. So we're gonna have lots for this district.
Good. Excellent. Good way to do it. All right. Yes. Go ahead, Susan.
I just wanted to mention that on Sunday, there was the Charlotte Lake Farmers Market event.
Here.
First time they've done it, as I'm aware of, on a Sunday, and there was a really good turnout, and managed to pick up some little gifts for stocking stuffers. So it's great.
And we can't forget the Festival of Trees that happened a week ago, right? I had COVID, so I couldn't come and do my thing, but Susan stood in for me. Again, I think it was well attended, and starts Christmas off in the right way. Always nice to see that event happen.
What struck me was the number of people who came back for the draw, and they were all waiting expectantly. Most of the people who won weren't there, but we had a really good time. It was lots of spirit.
Great. Okay. Deputy Smith, do you have anything to add? No? All right. Our next item is appointment of the deputy mayor for 2024. And I have a little part to read here. The deputy mayor shall be appointed at the inaugural meeting and the first regular council meeting in December thereafter. The deputy mayor shall be selected from a different ward each year throughout the term of council, allowing for representation from each ward once per 4-year term of council. Council members have the right to decline the deputy mayor role. If all members of a ward decline the deputy mayor role, then a member of another ward may be nominated. Suggested order for ward selection was year 1, Hinchinbrook, year 2, Oso, year 3, Olden, and year 4, Kennebec. So I need to open the nominations for the position, and I call for nominations. Duncan.
I'll nominate Susan Irwin.
Okay, do I have a seconder? Seconded by Bill. Any other nominations? No other nominations? I think we have to call it 3 times. Okay, one more call. Any more nominations? I need a mover and a seconder to close nominations. Moved by Nikki, seconded by Lynn, that nominations are closed. And Susan, will you accept the appointment?
Yes, I will.
I will now put your name into the motion, which is under here. All right. So I have a motion moved by Duncan McGregor that cannot be signed by Susan. Do you just put a line through that one?
Well, you've got a couple of. Yeah. This is the one that she doesn't sign because she's going to be appointed.
Oh,
That was just dealing with nominations.
nominations. Okay. So this one I should. Great. All right. So we have a motion moved by Duncan McGregor and seconded by Bill Everett that Susan Irwin be nominated for appointment of deputy mayor for the Township of Central Frontenac for the 2024 year. All those in favor? Carried. Right, now we have the appointment moved by Duncan and seconded by Lynn that Susan Irwin be appointed as Deputy Mayor for the Township of Central Frontenac for 2024 year. All those in favor? Carried. And now that that's done, I'll tell you that I'm going to be running for warden. So you may have a little more work than the last deputy mayor, but maybe not. You never know. I'm sure you'll do fine. All right. All right, delegations. We are at our first delegation, and this is Joe Gallivan, Director of Planning and Economic Development for Frontenac County. And he's going to be talking about Green Municipal Fund application for the former Charlotte Lake School site.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. So yes, the report you have in front of you tonight is to give staff direction to make an application to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. They have something called a Green Municipal Fund to request 50% funding to for you to proceed with an environmental assessment study. Now, for those of you who were on the previous council, you'll remember that we did apply for 50% funding through FCM for the communal services feasibility study, and they approved that. And I think that the potential for success for this application will be better because FCM is well aware of the work you've already done, and they consider it a rural innovation project. So it's I won't go into detail. I've laid out what an environmental assessment is, but it will be looking at both the options for drinking water for the property and possibly other properties in the village, as well as sewage treatment. It is an engineering study. It's not a planning study. So someone like Mr. Keeley would be working with me to do the request for proposals. It is a provincial requirement. It's used for anything similar to this. So right now in South Frontenac, where they're looking at communal services, they're in the midst of doing this work, looking at using a municipal well for water, and then they haven't decided where they would discharge the sewage. It could go in a wetland, or they could treat it and put it into the lake. We are recommending that you support this tonight because in staff's opinion, this work needs to start next year. It's going to take at least 12 months to do it. Again, it's a requirement from the province, and it will give you clarity on exactly what your best options are. So it's almost like a funnel study. It'll take a big picture and start to work its way down. And I know, for example, there's been comments from the citizens concerning about discharge into Charlotte Lake. This study will determine exactly whether that can be done, and it will also determine exactly how much can be discharged into the lake. So it needs to be done. It will take over a year to do, and it'll keep the process for the site moving forward. So that's my summary, Mayor, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, questions or comments? Duncan.
So through you, Madam Mayor, to kind of the rest of council or yourself, I've been digging through the records and I can't find anywhere that council has given direction on what to do with the site. And I'm kind of torn on whether we should spend any more money on that site until we have an idea or some kind of direction from council.
Actually, you asked me that question and I started to answer it, and then I think I got lost in another email. We've been working, there's been the previous councils, two of them, appointed a committee to look at what the options are. So nothing has come for an approval. That's sort of the stage we're at right now. Because the committee has been working about what if, but there's so much information that we don't know that's what this is starting to tell us now. Joe, 2018, I believe we started.
Mayor, correct. That's when the previous council purchased it, and we started considering options. And if the previous council members will recall, at that time, working with your seniors housing committee, there was a determination to put seniors apartments on the property with the existing well and existing septic. It would have been 8 units. And at the same time, at the county level, we had started the work on the communal services project. So working with the mayor and your CAO at the time, council agreed to pause on moving forward on the 8 units to see was there potential to have more units on the property, not just seniors, but maybe other units. The environmental assessment work can start now without you having a fine-grained detail of what exactly you want on the property. Should council not want to proceed with this work, then basically it's called the do nothing approach. And that is it's a formal professional engineering term, which means we'll use what we have now and that will be it. So it'll be using the existing well and septic on the site.
Okay, go ahead.
The follow-up to that is, so it looks like they purchased, the council purchased the property in 2015. And there's been no motion through council on what to do with the property. So no one has came forward to council to say, here's the direction we want to head. And so for us to spend $50,000 now or spend any more money or staff until council's had that decision, we're kind of forcing ourselves down a rabbit hole. So if we continue to spend money on the project looking towards housing, but that hasn't came from direction of council yet, I feel like that money is being poorly spent. So I'm not saying this is a bad plan. I'm saying that someone should bring forward a motion to council to say, here's what we need to do, here's where we're headed. And then we can start talking about how we get there.
Is anybody else want to respond? Go ahead, Philip.
I think if I can just respond to Duncan, we've been doing that, maybe not in a formal motion to say, hey, this is what we're going to build there, but we've been progressing slowly, and you'll see that there's, different studies have been done. So, I mean, council has been giving this blessing on an ongoing basis of doing incremental steps. So I think, I had some questions around this too, whether this is what we need to do first or not, but we need to do something. We either need to do something or say, forget about the whole site and carry on doing nothing. Let it go. But I think for the municipality, we need to move forward and do something.
Okay. No, Bill, it's through me, not each other. Bill?
And thank you, Madam Mayor. It's also a catch-22. If we don't know what is allowed, we're stuck as what we can put in.
And you also have to remember there was 2 years of COVID that stopped everything. So the committee didn't really meet for those 2 years. We're back meeting now, and we've had a consultant who's been working with us through the county funds that were given to allow us to take a look at what could be on the site. Nothing has been approved here because there hasn't been any solution as to what it is we want to propose. This is the next step on getting to that. So I guess the question is, if you don't want to put housing on there, you've got a lump of land sitting there doing nothing. Or you can keep going forward as we are. Joe?
If I can put a more proactive perspective on this work, should council want to do nothing with this property, you want to sell it. If you do the environmental assessment and it says that you can have a higher density on the property, the value of the property will increase significantly.
Yeah. Lynn and then Nikki.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. My point was just that if we do this study, it opens up the options to tell us what direction we should go in. And without the study, we are just pigeonholed into either the 8 units or nothing.
Joe, even with the 8 units, are we not going to need to do some kind of an environmental assessment?
Through you, Mayor, you're going to probably have to do a groundwater remediation study. Again, I'm speaking to you as your planner, not your engineer.
Right.
And you probably will have to do testing of the well and septic, minimal, and you may have to do an environmental assessment to make sure that the flow is consistent. It won't be a detailed assessment like this one is, but you'll still have to spend some money.
Right. Nikki?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If we're successful in the grant, that still council's on the hook for 50 grand to pay the difference. Can it come out of the 300,000 that's sitting at the county for housing? And then it not affect our bottom line at all?
Yes, it can.
Can it?
'Cause it's
Okay.
considered for help.
It's part of the
through
bricks
you,
and
Mayor.
mortar.
If I may be, I checked with Mr. Pender, our CAO, and the answer is yes.
Okay. Okay. Susan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Although we may not have a firm idea as to how we want to proceed with the the actual development, there's certainly a lot of community support for development. And we can't proceed with the development until we have this assessment. And it will further clarify what we can do. So I would fully support applying for that grant.
Okay. Nikki?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would fully support applying for the grant if the motion also states that the corresponding money comes from the county and does not come from our tax base. Can we make that amendment?
I think you would have to amend this motion first.
Well, I think as long as, because Michael's here as well as the treasurer, and certainly as council may remember that the county gave us that 300 with the proviso was for seniors housing. That was the first, and so it was very restricted to the point that it was to be for seniors housing. So that is one thing. So that's why we sort of move slowly. I think if you just go ahead and apply for the grant, we're certainly aware of it. You can add on to this resolution instead of changing it and further that we take the money out of the money that was been allocated from the county.
Can I suggest that we wait till budget time and talk about that as to how we would fund it if we didn't get the grant or if we did get it? I don't think it needs to be in the resolution, but it can be in the budget, which we're doing Friday. This will be fresh in our minds. Michael, do you have it in the budget now? Okay, we didn't think so. Okay, let me read the motion. The motion is moved by Susan and seconded by Duncan that council authorize staff to make an application to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Green Municipal Fund to receive a 50% grant to help fund the work on an environmental assessment to allow for communal sewer and water services to be used on the former Charlotte Lake Public School site. Okay, any further discussion? Duncan.
So I just want to be clear, like I support doing this work. I just think that we need a formal statement from council that that's what we're looking to do with the site. And then if I had that by digging through the records where at some point council had said, we would like to develop that property in a formal vote, then it's very easy for us to make these decisions because that's our goal we're heading towards. And this is a step to get there.
I think if we go back to 2018 or 2019 or 2020, there is that motion somewhere when you set up a committee, you don't set it up because you don't want to do anything. You set up a committee because you want them to bring back recommendations of what can be done. That's still the stage we're at. So this isn't approving anything other than if the grant comes to do the environmental assessment. The next presentation is going to talk about the 800 comments we had about what we can do with it. You can pick one of the 800 that you'd like to support, or 10 of the 800 that you'd like to support. All right, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right. Now let's hear about those 840 some surveys that we had.
Thank
Sonia.
you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. I do have a short slide deck to share, so I'll just wait while Chris brings that up. I did also want to note, I think there was an attachment to my report that maybe did not make it into your agenda package or online. I know it got posted on the Engage Frontenac site, and then Jody was going to send it out to you. But I will say everything that was in the attachment, I did talk about in my report. It's just the attachment came right from the Engage Frontenac software, and it had a lot of really nice looking graphs that I just didn't replicate from my report. So there's no real missing information, but just in case anybody noted that discrepancy. But yeah, I'm here tonight to talk about the engagement that we did about future land uses and the potential for different uses on the former school site in Charlotte Lake. So yeah, the next slide, please. So just as a bit of background, I was here back in July when you had provided us with direction to do the community consultation on, what the community would like to see on that site. We had done the feasibility study for communal servicing on the site, but the intent of that study from an engineering perspective was to say, okay, how many residential units could we put on there if we use communal? And the idea was to prove that it could be more than 8 to 10. And it was more like 45 to 50. But we did hear from people at that time who said, well, but maybe we'd like to see something other than residential on the site. So we said, okay, that's fair. I think we need to have a conversation as a community. So that was the purpose of this engagement event. And the events were held, there were a variety of things happening. Events and meetings were held from August through to November. So I'm here tonight just to talk a little bit about what we found and what we discussed. So next slide, please. So in terms of the engagement events, we kicked things off on August 25th with a bit of a sort of a pop-up at Mike Dean's. It wasn't advertised because it was intended to be spontaneous and to try and catch people who normally wouldn't take the time to come out and see us at the workshop. And we had a few good conversations, but it was mostly we were handing out flyers, letting people know about the workshop that we were holding, as well as kicking off the online survey. So we had the online survey as well, which I'll talk about in a minute. We had the in-person workshop in September, which you can see a photo here. We had about 40 people. And so we had about, I think, 6 different tables and some really good discussions amongst members of the community. I think it was really good for people within the community who maybe had some different ideas to hear what other people had to say and kind of realize that, wow, you know, it is a pretty big site. And so maybe we can do more than just one thing with it. And I've also had a number of meetings with different committees that the township has, as well as community groups. So next slide, please. This just illustrates the various committees and community groups that I did speak with. So I met with the Pickleball Association, who are technically the current users of the site, the Township's Economic Development Committee, as well as the Seniors Housing Committee. And I also met with representatives from the Sharbert Lake Business Group and the Central Frontenac Housing Corporation and the Kingston Frontenac Library. So I've probably missed somebody. I always do, but these, of course, were groups in my conversations. They would always point out somebody else that I should go and speak with, right? So these are the groups that did give me some very good feedback, and that has been incorporated into the report. Next slide, please. So the survey ran for about 4 weeks. So from August 25th to September 22nd, and we used the Engage Frontenac platform, which is a separate website, but it is used by all the townships as well as the county. We asked one open-ended question about what people would like to see on the site. And then we had a series of about 10 multiple choice questions. Very often people could select multiple answers, but the questions were sort of divided up into groups. So there were some questions about residential, some about commercial, institutional, and then recreational and open space. We had 857 surveys completed and 1,206 responses. So why the difference in numbers? So a bit of a caveat about surveys. So surveys are not, they're not perfect. And certainly there are things now, even I'm certainly not an expert in writing surveys. And I think there are things now that I've learned that I might've done differently were I to redo this one. One of the catches too is that with the Engage Frontenac website, you can require registration in order for a survey to be completed. We did not do that. We've had quite a bit of pushback from people who don't want to register. I'm not really sure what the concern is, but we said, fine, we left it open. Anybody could fill it in. But we definitely did see a duplication of responses, and the software is very good at going through. It kind of can, I'm not a tech or computer person, but pick out the IP address. And so you can see where multiple entries have come from at least the same computer. Now, those could be, if it's like 2 or 3, maybe it's people living in the same house using the same computer, but sometimes there were about 10 or 12. And so I think probably about 300 of what we got were people doing some duplicate, or they had done their response and then they shared it with other people who put in the same response. So there was some duplication, but because we received over 850 in total, when you look at the diversity of all of the opinions and the comments that we got, and then we also had those conversations at the workshop and with those other community groups and committees, I think the results from the survey are still valid, even though there was some duplication. I think in hindsight, this would have been a perfect opportunity to require registration because it was such a popular survey that people wanted to fill out. I will say, just as a bit of a plug, when people do register for Engage Frontenac, it's an opportunity for the township in the future to use that as a tool, because you can create digital newsletters that you can send out to people in your township that are registered. So it becomes a really good tool that you can use for things like that in the future. I put that out there. So next slide, please. We asked a couple of different demographic questions, and we wanted to ask where people were from. Again, in hindsight, very often when you do locational surveys, people do postal code surveys, ask people, but that's harder in the rural area when a larger group of people share the same postal code. So we asked a number of different questions, which are illustrated here in terms of the numbers. I think the one thing that I would do differently is I should have had a box to check for somebody who's not a resident of Central Frontenac, but comes here, because one of the things I learned in my conversations is how you guys are very much a hub for people who might not even live in Central Frontenac, but people are coming here from South Frontenac and from Maberly and from North Frontenac and from the Lennox and Addington area. So you are getting, and so people were responding, and I was getting in sort of the other section. It's like, oh, well, I'm from Maberly and I love coming into Charlotte Lake, and and I'm interested in what's happening here as well, because I want to rent an apartment here. So so there's a lot of interest even from outside the village and outside of your township in terms of the potential for this site. And again, you look at this and again, some of the duplication, it says I'm a business owner in the village of Charlotte Lake, 160. I don't know, maybe some people were like, maybe they defined the boundaries of the village a little bit differently, but I think it gives a really good flavor in terms of who is interested. Next slide. This one I found really interesting, notwithstanding for some reason, the system counted people who were 45. You got to choose one or the other, I guess. It should have been 46. But what I found really interesting about these statistics was that the majority of people, again, notwithstanding duplication, who responded through the survey were about 75% almost were between the ages of 18 to 45. And, again, notwithstanding this site and this survey, what that tells me is that that's how the younger demographics in your community want to communicate with you. So things like Engage Frontenac, your website, your social media, that's how they want to communicate with you. And that came through really loud and clear in terms of the participants. And again, there was still strong support for seniors housing, even though, less than 9% of the people who responded were over the age of 65. Next slide, please. I think one of the things that the survey showed is that there is a huge potential for a whole range of uses for this site, depending on what the water and sewer analysis eventually says. And for, you might be sitting there thinking, well, if it could be used for almost anything, how does that help us make up our mind about what it should be used for? I think what was really interesting is shortly after this survey, you started a survey for your strategic plan. I know you didn't get 850 responses for that, but the correlation that I would make is that a lot of, again, what I heard about this survey from the community are things that you could translate into what people just in your community just want in your community as a whole. It's really hard for people to participate in something like a strategic plan or official plan. It's kind of big and nebulous. They don't really understand what it is. But when you give them like, hey, we have this 2-acre site in the middle of our village, what should we do with it? That's really tangible, and people can latch on to that and come up with a lot of great ideas. So the idea that, people want affordable housing, they want access to recreational facilities, all those things are things that could be something that you take forward into your conversations for your strategic plan. But in terms of some of the common threads, in terms of the feedback, definitely the need for affordable housing. And I would emphasize affordable housing for all. Definitely support for seniors housing, but there were many people who felt that it would be nice to have like different age groups all living together on the site. I know there can be challenges with that when you're trying to do just seniors versus other, but just generally the need for affordable housing, regardless of what age group that you fell into. Slight preference for rental units. I think a bit of a concern that if there were things like condominiums or single detached or something like that, that were going for ownership, that becomes market rate housing and it becomes less affordable when that happens. Definitely a preference for mixed use. And I will say, especially at the workshop, quite a bit of consensus around the idea of having one or more low-rise buildings so that you could have something that's not residential on the ground floor and then have a story or two of residential above, just making better use of the space. Certainly support for spaces for businesses. We've heard both for sort of artisans and people looking to have office spaces that there isn't access to that right now in the community. And there was some support for some institutional uses, and the ones that seemed to be highlighted the most were the library, healthcare services, and then other social services that help support vulnerable populations in your community. And then generally, you know, some support for having some kind of public recreational or green open space on the property as well. In terms of the pickleball court, I think pickleball itself has taken off across municipalities everywhere, widely popular. I would say definitely support for it on the site, but I mean, also comments from people saying, you know, it's great that they're there and they go and they use the grocery store, but maybe it's not the best use if you're trying to fit more housing on the site in the middle of the village. So again, I know the pickleballers are very anxious for some kind of decision, but I think, again, we still need to work through some of the financial details and the servicing details to know exactly what can go where on that property and how much of that property can actually be developed with a building before saying for sure. Next slide, please. So in terms of next steps, of course, we just had the previous presentation about seeking funding for starting the environmental assessment process. Our recommendation in front of you tonight is to have us go away and prepare a list of preferred uses for the site that can be used to help with any of the upcoming technical studies. And also starting to do some work to understand the various costs that would be associated with different ownership and operational models, because eventually council is going to have to make a decision about how involved they want to continue to be in the property, right? And it could run the spectrum from you own and operate everything to you rezone it and you sell it, right? Like there's a whole variety of things in between that could happen. And each of those different scenarios have different costs associated with them. And I think we need to, we as staff, I'm like as a planner, that is not my area of expertise. So we need to talk to people who are a bit more knowledgeable about the finances, like your treasurer and maybe a land economist, so that we can come back to you with some different scenarios. So you can start considering that as well in terms of your deliberations. So that is the last of my formal slides, but I know it was a lengthier than normal report that I wrote for you. So if there are any specific questions, I'm happy to take questions from members of council.
Okay, thank you. Philip.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The one question I had was about the next steps and, you know, the further studies we need to do, because we've had some discussions about a business plan, updating the business plan. But I mean, obviously we need to know what's going to go there to have a functional business plan. Kind of breaking it what those next studies need to be, or those next reports we need to look at, and the costs associated with that. As you heard earlier, we have a budget meeting coming up, and we're going to try to incorporate some of that hopefully into what we're doing over the next year. So, and can those further studies or reports be done concurrently with the environmental assessment study that's going to happen?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it would depend on what they are, but I don't think because the EA is happening, other things have to stop. I think other things can run concurrently.
Just to add to that, in the beginning, the county funds were allocated for us to use a consultant, and we've had Ken Foles working with us. And I believe, I don't know how much we've spent of the pot, but he has been continuing to work with us. With COVID, not a lot, but starting back again. And at this point is not charging us, but I'm sure down the road, as we get more involved, we will have to look at that. But again, I believe those funds can come out of those county funds for that, if there's anything left for consulting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, more questions, comments? Okay, so you will come back with us with a smaller list of what's the preferred
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I think, I mean, I would hesitate to give a super detailed list, but I think based on everything that we've heard, and as Joe had mentioned with the EA, we're going to start broad. And then as they go through each of the various steps, it will be narrowed down. And then what may happen is I think what we could do is come up with our, I'll call it a wish list in terms of in a perfect world, these are all the things that we would like to give permission to be on this site. And that as the technical studies are done, there may just be a few things that have to start coming off. And or there's a decision that all of these things could go there, but they can't all go there together. So we have to pick and choose.
Yes.
And again, at what point is council going to continue to make those decisions? Or are they just going to rezone the property and turn it over to the private sector? Like there's a whole, especially if you want to do affordable housing, it's really tough to turn everything over to the private sector. If you want to maintain some control over affordability, that's the really tough thing. So again, there's all sorts of different models out there for affordable housing. Again, not our wheelhouse of expertise, but as you said, you've got a consultant already helping you with that. So we can have more conversations with him. And yeah, definitely but I think we need to kind of come up with that list, work with that list because we need that for the various studies that we're going to be doing. And then that list will just get refined over time until we reach the point where we say, okay, we're going to rezone the property.
Yep.
And then is it rezoning because you're building, somebody else is building, but
I think one of the things we heard early in our earlier presentations was nobody seemed to feel comfortable with 45 to 50 units going on that spot in the middle of the village. So I think that was something, I don't know if it's come up in the survey, but certainly at one point somebody said that would just change the whole village if you put 45 units on that one spot. And again, we might have to look at phasing things on that spot as well. Philip, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just going to ask around timing of that coming back to council and what role does the actual housing committee then have moving forward in these discussions and working on this site?
My opinion is the housing committee needs to flesh out a lot of these things to bring them back to council. And we can do it by having our minutes come back and answer questions. There's so much unknown at this point. I think we need to start with the environmental assessment, which will then guide what we need to be looking at from our list of what we can do. This isn't going to happen in the next year.
No, but we can pare that list down because otherwise, if you're saying we're waiting for the environmental assessment, we've heard that's going to be a year.
Yes.
So we're going to wait for a year.
Well, no, I think within that year, we need to be giving some ideas about what it is we're looking for as well. So I think the housing committee needs to come up with some possible ideas of, do you want 24 units and 3 storefronts and a library? To give some guidance of costing and how that could work. There may be a number of scenarios that we would look at how it could work and what the cost would be. But I think the committee has to do the work. I don't think that can be done at this table. Which is why that committee
I was going to say
there.
too, I'm happy to go back in the new year and have that conversation with the housing committee as I'm working on my list. If that's helpful as well, if that's council's preference, I can stay in touch with that committee and have that conversation with them before it comes back to council.
All right. Okay, let's read this motion. Moved by Duncan and seconded by Susan, that council received the planning report from Sonia Bolton, manager of community planning, entitled Former Sharbot Lake Public School Site Redevelopment Project, Summary of Community Engagement about Future Land Use on the Site for Information Purposes. And further, that council authorized staff to prepare a report with a preferred list of uses for the site to be used as part of future technical studies for the redevelopment project. So this will help guide what we look at. All those in favor? Carried. All right. So the next item is the official plan number 12 on our agenda. And that's you, Joe?
Want to read the motion first?
Okay, yeah, sure. I'll read the motion first. Moved by Lynn Clegg, seconded by Susan Irwin, where council passed resolution 444-2023 on October the 10th, 2023, directing staff/planners to prepare a report to amend the official plan to allow for an increase of lots to be severed from 2 to 3 to 4, from 2 to 3 or 4, or as many as allowed per the planning. And whereas Joe Gallivan, Director of Planning and Economic Development for the county, will be leading this project, which will come forth in February 2024, as planning staff will have a proposed work plan for the year, along with costing, which will allow council the information they require to make an informed decision. Joe.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'd like to speak to council and give you some reasons why I'm asking to defer until February. First of all, even if it was on the table tonight, in working with our GIS department, because they will have a significant involvement in this work, just like they did on the work we did for Frontenac Islands. They've advised me that they would be unable to start this work for a number of months. First of all, their priority number one is the next generation 911 project, which they've been working on for 2 years. They're 85% complete. They've got to still work on some islands addressing, but that is a priority for them, and I understand that. Secondly, the department is a 3-person team, and one of their staff members just announced she is retiring. Ms. Charlene Godfrey is retiring at the end of December. So they will be down 1 person. They probably won't have another person filling that spot until March. So that's one reason why we could, even if you wanted, you said we want to do this work, it couldn't start until at least March. But from a more contextual perspective, the reason I'm recommending February is because at the beginning of that month, Sonia and I will be going to the County Planning and Economic Development Advisory Committee with our new work plan for 2024. We're revising it. We're revising the entire departmental work plan and redoing priorities, because through our budget work with County Council, they chose not to, for next year, hire an additional person in economic development, and things are going to have to come off the table, quite frankly. But that's our responsibility to tell County Council that. Secondly, in February 2024, we'll have done all our hours for 2023. We'll be able to talk to you, and I'll be coming to you to report what our work plan is expected for 2024. And that work plan is for the work we do for you, for North Frontenac, for the islands, and of course, at the county level. And there are some big issues at the county level next year. There's the work I've been working on the communal services that will continue. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but on November 7th, the Frontenac Municipal Service Corporation utility was created. So that is a big step forward, and the board will meet in January. I've been working on that, and we're also doing the work on that community planning permit system. If you recall, you've invested $25,000 on that, and that is a major piece of work we'll be doing. And then we're hoping to start work on the regional natural heritage study to update that study, and that'll take quite a bit of time. So you'll see the context of our work plan next year, and more specifically, we'll come back on some of the priorities will be coming forward to your council. So, for example, the Charlotte Lake project, I expect we'll be putting in more hours last year. Since the work started, we've allocated more than 300 hours on that project. Last year alone was 150 hours. And Sonia, just the way she just described it, we'll be spending a lot of time on that. Also, either in January or February, we'll be coming forward to you with recommend that you hold a public meeting to amend your official plan with respect to communal services. So in November, County Council amended the county official plan to specifically recognize that new development on communal services is a good, sustainable way to bring new development into communities. But it will be up to each township to decide where you want to allow this to happen. Do you want, for example, to have the communal service development to happen in all your villages, or just some of your villages? Do you want to permit them to promote some lake development because there can be some environmental benefits, or only some lakes, depending on which ones are at capacity? Do you want to permit them in rural areas with a different type of development, but you could certainly get more lots? And if so, how much of that would you support? So you got to talk to your citizens and work towards what you want in your official plan, because at the end of the day, you don't want a developer to show up and say, oh, I have a 200-acre parcel of farmland. I want to build 400 units on it. And you have no direction for that. So that's an important thing we're coming forward. And then by February, you'll have done your strategic plan. And maybe there's some priorities there that you want to focus on. So that's why I'm recommending we come back in February, where I'll have a detailed report with our expected hours and costs, and you can decide whether you want it to move forward at that time or allow us to work on some of the other projects. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Does anybody want me to read the motion again? Basically, it's saying this will come forth in February 2024. Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right. Now the CRINS issue. Can you tell us first what CRINS stands for?
Oh, okay. As long as you don't ask me to do the French half of it,
No,
I can do
just
the
the
English.
English.
So CRINS is the Canadian Radio Communications Information and Notification Service.
That was a test. I have it in front of me, but I didn't know it was there. You passed, Sonia. You passed. Okay, I'm going to read the motion and then we'll discuss it. So moved by Dan Meeks, seconded by Bill Everett. Whereas on May 24th, 2022, Council passed bylaw 2022-34 to enter into an agreement with the Canadian Radio Communications Information and Notification Services, CRINS, to receive and process applications for radio communication facilities on behalf of the Township of Central Frontenac in our capacity as the Land Use Authority as recognized by Industry Canada. And whereas the CAO clerk is recommending to council that we provide notice to CRINS that if the township does not receive a copy of the Land Use Authority report for the township to review and sign for project number C8688, and B, confirmation that the letter of concurrence for project number C8655 has been submitted to Industry Canada, and C, confirmation that the public consultation package and notice has been circulated for project number C8658 and confirmation of when the public consultation process will be complete. By the end of the day, December the 18th, 2023, the township will be rescinding CRINS authority to act on behalf of Central Frontenac Township as the Land Use Authority effective December the 19th, 2023, and will direct CRINS to stop work on all current applications within the jurisdiction of the municipality and return all materials related to the current applications to the municipality. And whereas if CRINS does not fulfill their obligation, council adopts Industry Canada's radio communication and broadcasting antenna system CP2003, updated effective July 2022 as the process for reviewing and approving land use issues associated with antenna systems siting proposal. Now, therefore, be it resolved that council approve the recommendation of the CAO clerk and authorize staff to provide notice to CRINS to rescind our agreement with them as of December the 19th, 2023. Discussion. These applications have been sitting with this group for many, many days. Duncan.
Through you, Madam Mayor, two questions. So the first question is, recently we've had a lot of discussion about how much we're putting on staff's plate. Is it a good decision to put this back on staff's plate with that time restraints? And then the second question, if I could ask at the same time, is right now the fee is $2,350 paid to CRINS. Would we not keep that same fee if we adopted it within the township?
Sonia's going to ask this because she's the one that will be doing the work.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So, so CRINS is an organization that's been in place for a while. And I would say, I don't know what has happened, but something has happened in the last 9 to 12 months where response times have declined significantly. So my understanding through the rumor mill is that potentially they may be bought out by somebody. Having a group like this, they have expertise that as a planner, I don't have. I mean, I can look at a tower proposal, I can tell you how tall it is, but I don't know how the systems work. So the whole point of becoming a member of CRINS was that they would do all of that detailed review on behalf of the township, and they would do the public consultation, and really the input required from staff would be quite minimal. So it would be more work for us to take this back on. So it's not ideal. I think the reason we're giving them some time, few days, North Frontenac did issue a similar sort of ultimatum to them, and they did provide the documents within the time frame that they were given, which I think is ideal. So my hope is that we can see some movement on these files because they've been sitting for so long, and then we can see in the new year if somebody does buy them out, if it's of benefit to stay with them, because there is a significant time savings to staff. If it comes back in-house, so right now what the municipality is getting is $750. The overall price of, I think you said it was about 2,300. Again, they may have other experts on staff that they need to pay. I think I had already conveyed to staff that we should probably look at amending our fees. I don't know if I would make it a full $2,300, but I would probably make it more in line with the site plan, one of the site plan fees, maybe a minor site plan, because in other places that haven't been members of CRINS, the way we've run these applications is we've treated them like a site plan, except we don't actually do a registered agreement because we're not allowed to. But we from a process perspective, that's how we would circulate and review the application. And I think it's important to do it in-house because in some places they do allow the proponent to do the public consultation. But just as a planner, having spent my whole life doing municipal planning and doing the public consultation, I think it's important that the public consultation is done by somebody who is not the proponent of the project. I think that's very important. So that, again, if it comes back in-house, we're going to have a conversation about what that process looks like, who's doing what, and how long it's going to take. So.
But these particular 3 applications have been sitting for a long time. So there's all kinds of information there, and maybe it's just a signature that's needed and move it on, but it's got to get done. Otherwise, these towers are still going to be sitting next year at this time. Philip.
Is this the dealings we do with Industry Canada that we really have no authority over what the applicant's doing? They come to us and put us through a bunch of hoops, but we still have no say?
Similar, although we do get to say whether they're in a wetland or bad spot to place it, and have a little bit of leeway of working with them, I believe. Sonia, is that the case?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it is very limited. The process does require what's called a letter of concurrence from the municipality that you have no concerns. But the framework that Industry Canada has created is there's a very limited scope of things that are either natural heritage related or cultural heritage or archaeological related, or health and safety. And that's ideally where CRINS comes in, because they've seen all sorts of different scenarios. And they're able to tell when they get a submission from opponents, like, you didn't do this right, you didn't do that right, with, this Health Canada code or National Building Code. And those are just, things that aren't in my wheelhouse of expertise. So, short answer is yes, ultimately the municipality doesn't actually have a say, but you are being consulted as part of the process.
So hopefully we can move things along. Susan.
Through Madam Mayor to Sonia, you mentioned that it will be extra work for you if you take this in-house. That I think you mentioned there's something's happening at CRINS and possibly a takeover. Are there other organizations that do this work?
To you, Madam Mayor, not that I have heard of, but again, it's not an industry that I'm involved in with any, in any depth. So there may be, and that may be why somebody is looking at buying CRINS out, but I don't know if there's anybody else right now.
Okay. All right. We've learned lots tonight about CRINS. And hopefully they're hearing us and they will do what we need them to do so that we don't have to face doing all this work. All right. All those in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Carried. All right.
Thank you very much.
That is it for you two.
Thanks for moving us up.
Travel on. Thank you for coming. It's nice to have you in person instead of on Zoom. Yes, bright and early, Joe.
I think he's here.
All right. Steve Harvey. Is Steve Harvey here? Oh,
he's
Steve is
online?
on the line. Okay. All right. So we have a presentation from Steve Harvey, who is Acadia Engineering, who's going to talk about the roads needs study. Steve, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Okay, you're going to have to speak up a little louder, maybe a lot louder if we're going to hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we're just turning up your volume here.
Okay.
Keep talking so we can see if it's loud
Yeah.
enough.
Can you hear me now? Is that loud enough?
That's very good. Yes. All right. You have the floor.
Okay, I'm going to try to share my screen so I could show my slides. Let's see here. Oh, share screen.
How much time do you think you'll need, Steve?
Maybe 7 to 10 minutes, but just probably 7 minutes.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay.
The joys of technology.
Right. Okay, it should be coming up here now.
Ah, yes, now we can see it.
Okay, perfect. So thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Council, for having me. Again, my name is Steve Harvey. I'm the president of Acadia Engineering, and my delegation is to summarize the 2023 road needs study. So first off, I'd like to say that I had a pleasure of personally driving the roads in the township, and it was a beautiful community to drive through. And we actually took this picture from the township. So as a background, the road needs study purpose is to aim to provide a comprehensive assessment of the road conditions, helping short and long-term decision-making regarding roadway rehabilitation strategies. We followed MTO guidelines on how to conduct the field investigations and assess distresses, and we used MTO calculations to determine the pavement condition index, or the PCI rating, that helped develop our prioritization scheme. The Township of Central Frontenac currently manages 85 kilometers of paved roads and 107 kilometers of surface treated roads, being about half of the hardtop surfaces. Now, to be clear, that's not all the roads in the township. Acadia was only asked to review the hardtop surfaces. So the criteria for assessment, these are the defects that we assessed on each road to obtain the pavement condition index, the PCI rating. We also took into account the amount of traffic on each road, the drainage type, the ride condition, and things like the speed limit and things like that. And we classified the roads into 4 different categories, being the now needs, the 1 to 5 category, the 6 to 10 year, and the adequate category. Observations that we found in the township is over the next 3 slides, we'll show some typical defects found in the township. Here we see some edge cracking and some edge breaks. And here we see some vegetation overgrowth on the shoulders and some sand buildup on the shoulders. On this slide, we see some various types of cracking, so longitudinal, alligator cracking, and so different types of cracks. So the life cycle analysis, here we have a graph that shows the difference between a pavement preservation action versus a major rehabilitation or reconstruction. So this is an important graph. This graph shows that it could be useful to have a budget for pavement preservation. So the more times that you preserve or do a preservation method, the longer your roads will be good for, and maybe hopefully reducing the amount of rehab or reconstructions required. So the next two slides, I'll be talking about restoration methods. In this slide, there's the more common crack sealing and microsurfacing options. But these ones are normally done, have been done and will likely be done again in the township. But there's some newer alternatives, being the Reclamite and the CRF, which are both being sealant rejuvenators for different levels of road distresses. But these four alternatives are restoration methods that can be accomplished or can be done to accomplish better roads in the township without going through the costs of full road reconstructions. So the next two slides show the results of our analysis in costs. This slide shows the results of all of the hardtop road surfaces, including roads with very low traffic volumes. But the next slide, this slide shows the costs excluding low traffic roads, so roads with lower AADT. We understand these numbers can't be met with budget constraints, and so it'll be up to council and to staff to pick and choose what roads what roads need to be done from our priority rating list provided in the report. Something the report brings to attention to is the cost implications regarding Municipal Road 38. Although Municipal Road 38 is currently rated highly in our report, it is suggested to perform pavement preservation actions now to avoid costly reconstructions. Because as you can see here, in 6 to 10 years or thereafter, it would be quite substantial to reconstruct or rehabilitate Municipal Road 38. So it's something that we noted to look at in the near future. I won't go through all the recommendations, but one recommendation that I would like to bring to your attention is to perform traffic counts for your next road needs study, and perhaps to have the traffic counts included in the bid prices. This would create a more robust and accurate report, and it would be useful in the next road needs study. Otherwise, the recommendations are just to read and follow the report as best as possible. I'd like to thank the township for the opportunity, and working with the township has been a great pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, any questions or comments? Philip and then Nikki.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to ask, how were traffic volumes used in the report? And if there's a full report, will council be getting a copy of that full report?
Yeah, so the ADT traffic counts were used from the previous report and adjusted for the years that were the gap between the reports. So we just used the last ADT numbers. And if you haven't received the report already, then yeah, I definitely suggest we send the report to council for sure.
Okay, Nikki.
That was my question. We'd never got a road breakdown, like we're going into budget on Friday, and this is great information and very highly educational for us, but there wasn't a breakdown in the report on which roads were of the highest need. But I do like the last suggestion on the recommendations to look at regrading gravel shoulders, improving the ditching and proper drainage. So that's something that we can do in-house, but I would like a list of the roads before Friday if possible.
Well, in the capital budget, there are roads there that were recommended to be done. Is that not true, Michael?
To Madam Mayor, yes, there's roads in there, but that strictly came from Public Works and they had the roads need study at different points. So I'm not sure which roads, Councilor Gowdy, through Madam Mayor, were pulled from that, or if that's something that's going to be looked at later. But I'm sure Steve Keeley hopefully will be here on Friday and we can answer that more detailed.
We can put them all in and then see what we can afford to do. We know there's a long list. Okay, any other questions or comments? Duncan?
Sorry, just following up from through you, Madam Mayor, just following up through Nikki Galley's comment. So will we receive the road need study before Friday?
We can.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Steve, can you answer that?
Yeah, through you, Mayor. The road need study report is ready, so there shouldn't be any reason why you couldn't have it. I would leave it up to Steve Keeley to send that to you, but I can send him an email this evening to ask for that to be sent.
Yeah, and
Okay.
Steve Gould is here. So Steve would know as well that there's. Yeah. Okay, so we'll
Okay.
have it for council.
it'll just be some light reading before the 132 pages of the budget.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. I have a motion moved by Susan and seconded by Duncan. The council received the presentation from Steve Harvey, Acadia Engineering, regarding the roads need study for information. Discussion, any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Cindy. Yes.
I think Steve had something that he wanted to say that you missed.
Yeah.
Okay, Steve.
Sorry about that. I just want to mention that when you're looking at the road needs study report, I just want to bring your attention to the appendices where the ratings of the roads are located. So it might help when you're reading the road needs study in this quick turnaround time. Really, the information that you're looking for is in the appendices with the roads listed from now 1 to 5, 6 to 10, and adequate. But when you are looking at the appendices, please keep into consideration the AADT, the traffic that's on the roads, because in the report, I do say that roads that have smaller AADT or not as much traffic, the MTO guidelines do suggest that they can be either converted back to gravel or just maintained. So when choosing roads out of those sections in the appendices, it could be preferable, or MTO does suggest that higher traffic volumes are done first. So I just wanted to point that out.
Okay, thank you. All right, all those in favor of the motion? Okay, motion's carried. Thank you very much, Steve. And we will peruse the report, I'm sure, page by page.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Now, where are we at? Public meeting. There is none. Consent agenda. You have in front of you all of the items, and I have a motion moved by Susan Irwin, seconded by Lynn Clegis. The council consent to the approval of items A through I for information, which are considered routine items. And those are A to I as in your package. Questions? Go ahead, Nikki.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item I, the District 4 Rec Committee has put motions through to spend the over $50,000 they have fundraised for to make improvements to both the Titchburn rink and to the ball field in Parham. What they budgeted for, something came up on the weekend, on Friday, when they were doing the new lighting and poles in Titchburn, and about $2,000 was found. What happened is they put the first light pole in and they went 7.5 feet down, which was great, just like butter. They don't have to put in guidelines, which saves tripping hazards or anything. They went to do the second pole 5.5 feet away, and they hit granite. So they kept moving after 4 feet. So they kept moving to try and find a spot to go down with. We now have to pay to have somebody come in and drill it down to put it 7.5 feet. So there's between $1,500 and $2,000 that they don't have in their budget. So I'd like to make a motion that the township cover that. We've covered the lighting at Mountain Grove Rink, which was quite a substantial fee that wasn't in the budget. So $1,500 to $2,000, considering this group paid for the survey to when the township purchased the rink out of their fundraise money. I don't think is a lot to ask. So if possible, I'd like to see the township cover that small expense.
So you're going to make that motion?
Yes.
Okay. So let's deal with this motion and then we'll get you to write that motion. I'll give it to you. Kathy will get you motion paper here. Okay, so all those in favor of receiving the consent agenda? Motion's carried. All right. Now, planning reports. Andy, you are up. Thank you for your patience. It's been a long day. All right, motions moved by Susan and seconded by Duncan, that council received the construction details report November 2023 for information. Any questions or comments for Andy on the construction report? No? All those in favor? Oh, sorry, Susan.
Sorry, because I stuck in her face there.
You had a busy month, Andy. November was very busy in terms of the number of permits issued. Now, is that because you're also issuing the septic permits?
Through Madam Mayor, yes, the septic permits contributed to that. I do have a summary here of the numbers that I added that I was going to speak to.
Okay.
Just to give you a little more context. At the last meeting, I was asked to add the number of applications to the construction report. I have included that as well as some other information that I felt was important. 28 sewage system applications were received between September and November 30th. This includes 21 new systems, 4 performance reviews, 2 septic tank replacements, and 1 gray water system that was identified in the reinspection program. 10 sewage system permits were issued in November. As of today, 24 sewage system permits have been issued, and there are 4 system applications that are incomplete, missing information. Out of the 44 applications where permits have not been issued, 8 are waiting review, 38 were incomplete. The incomplete applications are waiting on things like drawings from designers or approvals from other agencies such as Conservation Authority, MTO, or planning approvals. Other applicants have put things on hold due to weather or financial constraints. There were 56 compliance issues year to date. 42 are related to the reinspection program. For the reinspection program to be effective, we will need more resources dedicated to enforcement. Compliance issues take much more staff time than working with a willing applicant. Many of the issues they're complex and there's not a simple resolution. 35 of the owners have not replied to my letter. 15 of the owners have expressed an interest in resolving them, and 6 issues have been resolved. There's 577 open permits. That's going back to 2018. These permits are still valid. An applicant can call at any time for an inspection. Most of the active permits are within the last 3 years. But there are some permits that are 3 years old and construction hasn't started yet. Often applicants are not concerned about it getting a final inspection and closing the permit unless they're trying to sell their property. The number of permits closed in a year is often much less than the number of permits issued.
Andy, can I just stop you there? If the permits aren't closed, then the properties are not reassessed. Is that right?
No, we send our monthly reports to MPAC when the permits are issued, and they will assess the
Okay.
what stage the construction's at and contact me for questions if they think that people are living in the building.
So what are the implications of unclosed permits other than they're just sitting there and you have to deal with them?
Yeah, I just deal with them as they come up when an applicant calls and wants a final inspection, I go and do it. But oftentimes it comes up in a real estate transaction. They contact us to see if there's any issues with the property, and if there's an open permit, then we deal with it at that point.
Is that something a student could help with in the summertime, to call some of that 577 to see if we can get those permits closed?
That is an option. Yeah, but the building code act's pretty clear that the applicant is required to call for that final inspection. It's
But
not.
there's no penalty if they don't.
No.
Okay.
I did try implementing a $500 deposit that they would be returned if they closed it within 3 years, but most of the applicants forgot they even paid it, so it wasn't effective.
Duncan, you had a question?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So South Frontenac charges an annual fee. So if you have a permit open, every year, if you extend the permit, you have to pay a fee to keep it open. Does Central Frontenac have something like that? And would it help if every year we charge them a couple $100s to keep the permit open?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Duncan. That has been done here in the past, but it's more of the fee really isn't worth the administrative work that goes into it. And collecting the money can be an issue.
We can put it on the tax bill, can we not? I know you don't like to do it, but
Yes, Madam Mayor, a lot of fees can be put on. I'd want to double check that one could be, but I'm pretty sure it would. I would make the fee higher than whatever it is, make it more incentive.
yes.
If the fee was $1,000 a year and there's 577 outstanding permits, of which only 58 close, that's $500,000 back into the building department.
That should get some people moving for sure. We interrupted you. Go on with your numbers.
There is all different options to deal with it, but again, that sending those letters and dealing with phone calls, that all takes time. And
But maybe something you can bring forward to us in a report over the winter time.
Sure.
That we can take a look at what we can do to help out to get those closed.
Yep.
Okay.
There were 672 inspections generated in 2023. Obviously not all of these inspections will be completed, as the average time to close a permit is approximately 2 years. The inspections that carry over from previous years more than make up for it. And I would expect this number to increase in 2024 with a full year of sewage system permits. And that's my summary of the numbers there.
Hey, that not a lot of septic permits in a short period of time?
It is.
Have they been waiting for us to take it over?
I think some have. I'm expecting it probably another bunch of them to come in the spring, because I know a lot of the contractors haven't completed the systems that they were issued permits for this year.
Okay. Philip.
I just wanted to thank you for going over those numbers and including them in your report, because it is helpful for us making decisions as we go forward. So
you're welcome.
Okay. No other questions or comments? All right. All those in favor of receiving the report? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Okay, we've got the motion that Nikki has put on the floor. And it's moved by Nikki and seconded by Philip that council support paying for the added cost of lighting installation at the Titchburn Rink due to finding granite at 4 feet. The cost would be $1,500 to $2,000 on top of the cost that is covered already by District 4 Recreation Committee. And I just want to add, the reason we're bringing this motion is that it is an emergency in order to get the job done. Otherwise, it would have had to have been a notice of motion according to the procedural bylaw. Okay, so discussion? Duncan?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Michael, do we have $2,000 in the 2023 budget to pay for that?
Let me check on that. I was thinking 2024 budget, but yeah, we are, my head's in the next year. I'm sure we can find it somewhere, honestly, through Madam Mayor to Councillor McGregor.
Okay, all right, all those in favor? Carried. All right. Now we are at Fire and Emergency Services. There's Jesse sitting right there. Okay, we have a motion moved by Lynn and seconded by Duncan that council receive the Central Frontenac Fire Rescue Activity Report and the Central Frontenac Bylaw Enforcement Activity Report as prepared by the Manager of Emergency Services / Fire Chief dated December the 12th, 2023. Discussion. Nikki.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, Deputy Chief, you've been really busy and I know you've been quite busy. My question is actually about I think a typo. On page 2 of your report, it says that the total number of incidents in November was 14. But then when you go to page 8 and you do the comparison from last year's November report to this year's November report, it's 19. So I just wanted to clarify which number we should be looking at. Sorry to be a bother.
No, through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Gowdy. I do, when I was looking over the numbers today, the 14 incidents were actually the accurate. I'm not 100% sure. I believe maybe the comparables on the 2022 to 2023, the way that report might have pulled would have included a couple of the assistant reports, which would add that additional, whereas the actual incident reports monthly, they exclude that number. So it gives us the actual full number of incidents. So
it's what comes off the system.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Okay. All those in favor of the motion? Oh, Philip, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's not so much about the report, but I just wanted maybe some clarity on what is the actual process when we do parades? Because I don't remember us officially closing 38 this year, but I remember in past years, it's been a big to-do that we have had to come to council and get permission to close the road. So just whatever is the proper way, we're not consistent.
No, I think what happened is that when Sergeant Brown, the OPP, she had basically said that we cannot close it, 38, because you have to have at least one available lane, or at least to be able to, if there's an emergency, they need to get through. So that's why it's never come back. So we don't close it any longer. We just kind of try to keep it over as much as they possibly can, that if an emergency comes through, that's why the OPP are there. But no, we cannot close it any longer.
We just kind of delay people. And if there is an emergency, there's always a lane to get through.
And the fire will go.
Correct. Yes.
They'll get.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you.
All right. Financial. Moved by Lynn and seconded by Duncan that council received the check distribution reports totaling $602,887.73 as prepared by the treasurer for information. Discussion. All those in favor? Oh, discussion.
Sorry, just I noticed in the admin report, I know we've been putting a lot of pressure on you and having some faster timelines on the budget, but I was wondering when you plan on bringing the procurement bylaw back to council.
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor McGregor, that was on the third report. A last apology to council that it's not done right now. The treasurers have met once. I spent half of my weekend going through that. And it's still not at a point where it's presentable to council, but I hope to have something.
After the budget?
After the budget, most definitely. And then it's a challenge meeting with the different treasurers as well, but we are working towards it. It is important and we will get there hopefully sooner rather than later.
But we have a procurement bylaw that we use in the meantime.
Correct. Yes, there's always
We're
one
not
until we
without
repeal it.
one. We have
Yes.
one.
Correct.
Okay, just to be clear. Okay, all right. All those in favor of paying the bills? Carried.
And Madam Mayor, while you're writing there, just to answer Councillor McGregor's question earlier, there is $1,500 in the Tichborne rink for materials and supplies that has not been used yet in the 2023 budget.
Perfect.
So there's my.
And it could come in under that.
Yeah.
They're guesstimating 1,500. So that's why I said 2,000.
Good. Okay. All right. We have a motion moved by Lynn Clegus, seconded by Duncan McGregor. The council approved the following apportionments of assessment as recommended by Impact 2023 and 2024 as applicable with three roll numbers 1039 040 060 0140 05 and 1039 04 060 14 017. Discussion. All those in favor? Carried. Staff reports, corporate and financial support services. Moved by Lynn and seconded by Duncan. The council approved the CAO clerk and the treasurer to sign the renewal for providing of insurance services with Aon for the year of 2024, more specifically for the period of January 1 to December 31, 2024, at a cost of, and is everybody sitting down, $260,707. Ooh.
If I can add a pretty good context to that, Madam Mayor, to remind, we've been with Aon for 8 years now.
Yes.
And before that, we were paying $310,000 approximately. We saved $170,000 by going out with a joint RFP 2 times ago with the Frontenac. So even though it may seem high, it's certainly a lot less than what we probably would have been paying at this time if we'd stayed with that company.
And the value of everything has gone up so high that replacement value is huge.
It is, as well as on the MFOA small group discussion, 30% of the people that were there saw an increase between 5 to 10%. 5% was lower, 50% didn't know yet. So we're in the right range.
Good. Okay. Duncan.
One quick question, because I'm new to council. I'm assuming your answer is going to be no, but is there anything you think we could do to reduce that bill?
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor McGregor, I think there's always something that we could do. It's a matter of bang the buck, increase the deductibles doesn't have a huge impact. I think it's more the asset management practices and doing things the right way that would benefit more. Aon has provided good service. I want to mention that as well. The rep is very good for us. Kathy will agree. But they do offer a lot of different things as well. And then it becomes staff time, whether it's building or public works, whether we can implement those best practices.
And we have couple instances too.
Yes, and every time we have a claim is not a good thing. We do have those periodically. Okay, all those in favor of the motion? Carried. Oh, Philip?
Sorry, just before the treasurer goes, the cost of living increase that was proposed in the budget package, are we going to talk about that and decide on that on Friday? Or I just want to make sure before we leave that that's going to be addressed before we roll into January 1st and it automatically happens.
I can mention.
Yeah.
I spoke to Michael about that because it was too late then for put it on this council meeting because that's what we did a year ago. So we're going to do it for at the budget time as well.
Yeah. Okay, next, administration, moved by Lynn, seconded by Duncan. The council received the administrative report dated December the 12th, 2023 for information. Any questions or comments? Nikki.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just have 2. Kathy, on your, oh wait, never. I'm 2 ahead, I think. Mine was about the strat plan. It says December of 2023 in the one report. So did you want?
Not unless we're having more meetings.
Yeah.
No. I think they're at the spot right now. They're looking to do the final, but they've got it for the managers to look at the layout and the pictures and things like that. So that's where we're at. So, and we shouldn't be long and we'll be finished with it.
But it'll
So
be January before.
it'll be
it
January.
comes.
It was aimed for December, but it'll happen to be January now.
Okay, all right. All those in favor? Carried. Moved by Philip Smith, seconded by Nikki Gowdy. The council received the December 12th, 2023 quarterly business report as prepared by the CAO clerk for information. Philip.
So there's one of the items is corporate reorganization, and says it's work in progress in the first quarter of 2024. So I don't know if that's one of the things I've been asking for is an org review. So I don't know if that's part of that or.
I can speak to that. When we're having a discussion at the budget meeting, I'm going to certainly look from council. I would like some clearer direction on what you're actually looking for, because we have had some org reviews already done, which I can pull up that we have, and I plan to do that in time on Friday. So once we have a chance to look at exactly what those were for, they were, because I think some of the information, and I may be incorrect from what maybe council's looking at, or certainly Councillor Smith had asked, is more of the Lean Sigma type dealing as to look at our internal organization as to what we're doing, and how that more than actually in reorganization. But I will bring those things forward because we've had a couple of them done, including a state of organization that Kelly Pender did a few years ago as well. So, okay.
Okay. Any other question? Oh, Duncan.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Kathy, thank you for writing this report. It contains a lot of useful information on ongoing projects, and I appreciate seeing it in the council package.
Good. Okay. All right. All those in favor? Carried. Still on administration. Moved by Bill Everett, seconded by Dan Meeks, that council received the administrative monetary penalty system report prepared by the clerk's department for information. And further, that council approves staff to prepare the bylaws, policies, and procedures to implement the administrative monetary penalty system. And further, that staff bring back said bylaw, policies, and procedures for council review and consideration in April 2024. Discussion. It's going to take that long to get all the pieces together.
We put that time frame in just to allow us. It could be less than until April 2024. Also with the report, is council wishing still, would you like James Thompson from South Frontenac, because he said he's more than happy to come and explain it in more detail to council. And at that time, you would have the bylaw enforcement officer here as well, because she's the one that works with it. So that's why we held off having her actually come until we bring this for. If you wish, then we'd maybe do a resolution that we can have them come. Okay?
Okay. Philip.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That was just gonna be one of my questions is it seemed like staff was moving forward and going to do all of the work. And I don't know that council has fully said that, yes, this is the approach we want to take. So the interim steps that Kathy's suggesting sounds good, that we'll get more information before staff does all of the work to put it in place.
Right. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. All those in favor? Carried. All right. Moved by Bill Everett, seconded by Dan Meeks, that council received for information the 2024 council calendar, and further that council accept the proposed dates for the 2024 regular meetings of council. Discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Oh, our lives are just going quickly with calendars. Okay. Moved by Dan Meeks, seconded by Bill Everett, that council received the letter dated December the 11th, 2023 from Allison Robinson, Chair of the Central Frontenac Washroom Committee for information. And I've got and further that, and there's nothing filled in.
No, if council wish to do that, or we can have a further discussion, because I know in some of their and some of the letter that she's got on there, there is money in regards to the county, but we have to, a council has to pass a resolution to request that money. So I don't know if you would just want to receive it for information, and we'll have further discussion certainly during budget time. And then, so I mean, Washington Committee has met, so I know Councillor McGregor may be able to shed a little bit more light.
So through you, Madam Mayor, I think it's just a timing thing. I think that's their end goal. But I maybe wait till next week to see how much, make sure the project's going to go ahead through budget.
Okay.
Okay, so do we need to add anything or just receive it for information at this point? Okay,
Kathy, you have a very good, what do you think for timing? Do you want the motion made now, or would you like to wait till the new year?
We can wait until the new year. And I don't think I think they were pretty well. It's a step. You're right. It's sort of information as to how they're going to progress doing their money. So I think in the new year would work.
and it will be part of the budget
Yes, it
discussion
will.
as well. Okay, so all those in favor of receiving it for information? Carried. Right. Moved by Bill Everett, second by Dan Meeks, that bylaw 2023-65 being a bylaw to provide for an interim tax levy and to provide for the payment of taxes and to provide for penalty and interest of 1.25% per month, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed this 12th day of December 2023. It's tax time again. All those in favor? Carried. Now, I better get back to my agenda here. Is there any notice of motions?
No.
Is there any giving of notice of motions?
No, nothing has been received.
Is there any new or other business?
No, there is not, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Are there
Want
any?
a break?
Yes, there is closed session?
Yes, there is, Madam Mayor.
Okay, let's have a 5-minute break, bathroom break, and then we'll come back for closed session. Yeah. So what will happen, folks, is when we come back, we'll read a motion for closed session, and then you'd have to leave and wait to come back in until we're finished. But there really is only rising from closed and adjournment after that. So feel free to stretch your legs, have a visit, and we'll be back to work in about 5 minutes. Shall we go back to work now?
Okay,
Have a good night.
okay. See you.
I am going to read a motion moved by Nikki. Oh, Chris, are we live? Yeah, good.
Yep, you're right.
Tape. Moved by Nikki Gowdy, seconded by Philip Smith, that council resolve into closed session pursuant to section 239(1) of the Municipal Act to discuss one, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees.
What?
Section 239(2)B. All those in favor? Carried.